What's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. First time in a little while I'm seeing you guys kind of face to face. I had a lot of obviously deck profiles and coverage from the Vegas event that I was at. Luckily and thankfully, gratefully, I was able to make that event, and it was super fun, super excellent. I got a whole bunch of packs. This is like half the packs I got from that event. So look out for a giveaway tomorrow. That's right, we're gonna do a 2K plus thank you giveaway for you guys because you guys are the freaking best. So look out for that. We're gonna do a giveaway. But yeah, I'm back from the event, so we're gonna go over the meta breakdown and for Vegas and for Atlanta. So I figured it was okay to bring it the following week, because as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, there are no major events between Vegas and Atlanta, and the celebration events that start in March. As far as I know, no major events in between. So I figured it was okay to get you guys the coverage, the deck profiles while they were relevant. I had a lot of deck profiles, so I wanted to spread them out across the week. And now that we're in the beginning of the new week, I'm going to bring you guys this meta breakdown and give you a little bit of analysis, a little bit of my thoughts on it. So before we get into this video, guys, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and definitely hit the notification bell so you guys can stay up to date with all the Dragon Ball Super content I post here. It's a lot, it's frequent, it's awesome. If you guys are looking for a community for Dragon Ball Super, check out the description down below. We have an awesome Discord community that just is always talking about the game, always just like giving each other advice. They're really an awesome community. They're the best, so definitely check them out. And if you guys are longtime fans of the channel, definitely consider checking out my Patreon, which is also in the description below. It just helps me bring you guys this content that you guys know and love. I also have a whole lot of competitive content on there, articles and deck breakdowns, a lot of different things on there that will definitely help you improve your game if you're looking for that. So definitely check that out. We'll get into this video. So we're gonna start, we're gonna talk about both of the top cut breakdowns, both of the top 16s, and then I'm going to kind of compare, contrast, give some of my thoughts. So we'll start with the Vegas top cut. So 2 Shenron, which right off the bat, really interesting that we did not see any Shenron top Atlanta. It's very, very interesting. I feel like a lot of players are prepared for Shenron. I feel like the more the format kind of goes on, the more people understand how to play against Shenron. There's a lot of aggressive decks that are popping up lately, and we're going to see those in the top cuts of both these events. And Shenron has a really, really hard time dealing with that, because unlike Broly, certain variants of Broly don't like being aggroed either, but at least the leader can pressure some of those battle cards back. At least you have some options there. Shenron, you really just got to protect the castle until 5 energy, and sometimes that can be pretty tough. Even striving to be the best on Goku, if you're not on the play as Shenron, that's going to be really low impact, especially if your opponent is already out of turn to swing with 2 to 3 2-drops. It's not going to matter too much, and there are plenty of answers for active battle modes that people are also teching for, the Path to Greatness and the 2-drop barrier, lineage Gohan, things like that. So I can definitely see why Shenron's being phased out a little bit, but we'll talk about the Shenrons that topped. 1 Shenron Gogeta, no one's really surprised. And then 1 Shenron Vegito. Shout out to you, Amir. Your deck is so awesome, and I wanted that profile for so long, and that's on the channel. So Shenron Vegito into the repeated Force Red Vegito from I think set 1 or 2. That did make top cut. That was super sweet. Really cool deck, really out of left field. So definitely check that out if you want to see that deck profile. But surprisingly, no Shenron hand control. And honestly, at Vegas, just from scanning the room, I don't have results like PPG got for their total tournament entry, which is super cool that they got that, but I didn't get to see any type of breakdown for total representation of decks across the entire tournament. But just from talking to my team and perusing the entire room, Janemba was not very highly represented. I did see a few Shenron hand control decks here and there, but they're going to get beat out by all the non-Janemba decks for the most part, because any deck that pluses hard enough does not care about Shenron hand control. And if Janemba's not super duper repped, Shenron hand control is not going to have the field day it wants to have. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, just those 2 Shenrons in top cut at Vegas. Then we had 3 Pan. This was the sleeper pick of the event. There was a lot of Pan in the room, and I'm glad to say that 2 of the 3 Pans were some of my good friends. Tim Palacios, my teammate and friend, he got 3rd place with the deck. My friend Josh Wyman, he got 2nd place in Swiss and then top 16 overall with the deck. And then there was another Pan player that actually knocked me out of top cut. Super powerful deck. I mean, I think Red, and you'll see this with Baby Vegeta as well, I think Red is just the new turtle deck of the format. It can be so aggressive with chain attack into giving your 15k beater. It can be so defensive with revenge death balls if you're Baby Vegeta, double shot Vegeta if you are Pan. You have so many defensive options, and you have Chain Zeno just as the board reset. The deck is super duper good. It makes total sense that this is starting to increase in top cut showings, but oddly enough, did not make any top cut at Atlanta. So there's that. I think it's very interesting. I'll talk about this later, actually. So for Rudigarn, felt like the West Coast wanted to play anti-meta. So interestingly enough, Rudigarn to me has felt like a sleeper leader since Storm kind of went away. A lot of people weren't really experimenting with it, and it hadn't really topped like the last major events. But a lot of West Coast players came prepared with Rudiger, and a lot of my teammates especially came prepared with the deck. And Red Blue had a great showing, ended up winning the event. 4 out of the 4 Rudiger builds, there were 3 red blue and 1 mono blue. And you know, I think they just wanted to play with the most consistent leader and just play the highest value cards. And for David Fuji, that ended up working out really well for him. So congrats to him again. Red Blue did end up having a great showing, and no Chain Zeno as well in the winning deck. There were top cut. Like my teammate Marcus, for example, his red blue Huragarn was playing Chain Zeno, so you had the board reset, you had the control, you had the Huragarn leader. His 4 energy effect really put it in work. But just blue red high value ended up winning the day, which was really powerful. So 4 Broly and top cut. Now this is really cool because there's a lot of different variants and some new variants. So out of the 4 Broly, 1 Broly Storm. Yours truly. That was super awesome to make top cut. I picked that deck. I talked about this. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but I talked about this in my tournament report. I picked this deck to take advantage of all of the kind of just OTK decks like the Shenrons and the Broly Victory Strikes. So I built this deck to take advantage of all that, and I saw a lot of Broly. I saw a lot of Shenron in Swiss actually, and you know, it really propelled me into top cut. So I think I picked a good deck for the event. 1 Broly U7. This is a deck that I had not even seen like the concept for, and Cali Elite Gaming, that team was on this deck, and one of them did squeak into top cut. And this deck actually can put out a turn 3 Victory Strike. So it's I call it Broly U7 Victory Strike because it plays a lot of the U7 stuff. It plays like at all cost Vegeta, U7, Frieza Chain, things like that, and Objection. So you can actually hit turn 3 Victory Strike. Pretty gnarly deck. Really powerful win con, especially when you're not prepped for it. And then one of the other new things I saw in this tournament, which actually really caught my eye, was 2 Broly Frieza swap. So you're basically playing the Frieza swap chain, almost like, you know, the Storm equivalent of red, but you're playing up into the 5-drop Frieza in Broly. So you cannot get the 5-drop Frieza auto because your Broly's not a red Frieza army, but the objective is, you know, swinging twice with a double strike crit 25k with your Broly leader. That's the main objective of it. Just another aggro deck. Really cool and really powerful though, because you actually play blue, so you can play Senzu Bean and Weezus Coercion for energy manipulation, and you have like Infernal Villainy, Cell, and Unbreakable. So this deck actually can be very defensive when it needs to or wants to, and also can put out a lot of combo attack and a lot of high combo potential. So I actually really like this as an aggro deck going forward. I gotta test it because in theory, the way I see it, it's more hyper defensive and more hyper aggressive than Broly Storm, but much less consistent. You know, you don't have any success or hopes to search out your swap pieces. Out of people that play this deck all weekend, the one thing I heard was just bricking and not seeing your swap chain. So that doesn't seem like a problem with the deck, but if it does go off, it seems like it's very strong. So 1 Janemba in top cut. Funnily enough, this is the same amount of representation in top cut that Atlanta had, but not the same outcome. Janemba actually got knocked out in the first round by my teammate Marcus Cantarsi. So yeah, I mean, the deck it's really hard to sideboard against the deck. There's no clear sideboard. There's no Cronoa for Janemba. There's no Killy Zone for Janemba. There's nothing like that. So it's hard to sideboard for it. You got to have a solid plan going into the matchup, and there are a few tech cards you can play. 2 that really shine this particular weekend were Fu Shatter and Mystery and Sneak Attack Vegeta for sure, because those cards really do give Janemba a hard time. Anything that can chip away at their hand size, and then if you have Fu Shatter, just to turn off all their negates and turn off all their super combos, you know, you're gonna have a good time. But I think that at both events, it seems like Janemba was just so lowly repped. Like, we know the stats for PPG. I know they were very low, had very low representation there, and at Vegas, like I said, just from scanning the room, no one played it. I mean, it seems like a case of either no one wanted to play it or people just wanted to play counters to it, and that's what we saw here. Because at Vegas especially, there was a lot of Chain Zeno and top cut. So the next deck we'll talk about U7 Vegito, and the main shtick Vegeta, sorry, the main shtick of that deck was Chain Zeno. It was a blue red deck, Chain Zeno, manipulate energy, and you know, win that way, outvalue the opponent. Makes a lot of sense there. Like I said, another Chain Zeno deck in top cut, and actually 1 Yamcha also in top 16 of Vegas. This is really cool. I do have that deck profile if you want to see it on the channel, because this is a super niche deck that made in top cut. Really cool. The guy actually started off X2 on the day, lost his first 2 rounds of the day, won out, and made top 8. So it goes to show you, don't quit when you think it's all over. You know, X2 still has a very high chance to make top cut, especially if, you know, things go right for you all day. So that was pretty cool. And you know, again, another deck that actually sideboarded Chain Zeno. So here we go with the Atlanta top cut split. You guys see it side by side. Very different than the Vegas top cut split, and it's really interesting. I mean, I'm gonna wrap it up at the end with something why I think that it was so different, but we'll go into the top cut breakdown. So 6 baby Vegeta right off the bat, completely different than Vegas. It was just your standard, you know, baby ape combo. But what was very interesting was that 4 out of 6 of these top cut decks actually main Zeno. You know, they all pretty much every Vegeta baby deck plays chain attack because it lets you go really aggressive. But all the ones that I saw in Vegas, especially 2 of my teammates that played the deck, they didn't play Zeno in the main deck. They sideboarded it. And actually, I don't know for a fact, but they might have actually ended up cutting Zeno from the sideboard altogether. I think there was some discussion about that. Don't readily know. But they either sideboarded it or didn't play it. But the decks here at Atlanta, they mainboarded it. And maybe that's what gave them the edge at that event in particular. That might have actually given them a really huge edge to make it in top cut. You know, just trying to clear through all those combo decks. Just like ruin their combo, introduce a whole bunch of variants to the game. It was really, really interesting. Like I said, Vegas, completely different. They either sideboarded it or didn't really play it. Then we had 6 Broly, so this is a little more closely, you know, mirrored to the Vegas event. 6 here instead of 4 at Vegas. So we have the breakdown of the different types. We had 1 Broly height. This deck, it's really powerful, but to the same point, it's linear and it dies. It rolls over to aggro. I actually just wrote an article about this on the Patreon. If you guys are having a hard time with Broly height, it's actually relatively straightforward to beat the deck. I mean, your deck has to be equipped enough to do it, but definitely check that article out if you haven't. If you're struggling with that deck, on my Patreon in the description below. But that deck is very linear, and if you do anything that kind of throws off the flow of their win con, they're gonna have a really bad time. I mean, I noticed that perfectly when I played Broly Storm against the deck at the Vegas event. But yeah, that deck, it's really powerful, but it has to see the right matchups in order to really propel. So I'm not surprised only 1 made top cut. 2 Broly Storm. Again, this deck is super powerful. You just take advantage of all those turn 4 OTK decks. They can't really do much to stop you. What was really interesting was there were 2 Broly Height Storm hybrids in this top cut as well. One of them was a main deck version of the hybrid, so it was like your Bardox, your Will of Irons to evolve over, and it still had your Path to Greatness, and it still had your Height of Mastery. I don't believe this version played Victory Strike, but yeah, that was in the main deck. It's kind of just that split hybrid, and the other one was a Storm build that sideboarded into the Height, you know, smokescreen, let's just say. I was thinking about doing that actually. I was thinking about main decking Broly Storm and siding into Height or vice versa, but I ended up just realizing that I don't know what matchups I'm going to want to do that. The only one I really think that would have been really beneficial was my red matchups, because it just gives me a better win con against a long range deck, but I ended up siding a different, you know, package to go into a more extended game. So that was really cool. 2 of those made top cut. Glad to see that that was a decent idea. And 1 yellow World Tournament Height Broly. So this is a weird deck. I know Eggman was like really going crazy over this deck and thought it was really cool. I think it's really cool too. He just played like Chaozu Krillin to like get some advantage. He played the old men, the Master Shen, and the Roshi to gain more advantage. Really interesting. I'm very curious to see how the deck plays out. It seems like a much slower deck, but it seems like it gains a lot of advantage. So pretty solid. And there were 2 Hurrigan in this top cut at Atlanta, but they were both blue-black, interestingly enough. 2 of the guys from PPG were on this blue-black Hurrigan deck. Just wanted to take advantage of the new Demigra Power Booster promo. Interestingly, no red-blue Hurrigan, no Chain Zeno at this event. I don't think people necessarily wanted to play Chain Zeno, or didn't maybe, you know, realize how powerful it was in the format, maybe didn't want to play it. I can understand that. I'm not a huge fan of playing Chain Zeno decks, but it was very powerful. So very interesting that it wasn't here listed here. 1 Janemba in this top cut as well. You know, the Soul Survivor, 1 made top cut, 1 pierced top cut at Atlanta, and unlike Vegas, this guy was able to go all the way. You know, I heard about the misplays. I didn't see them for myself per se. I'm referring to some of the misplays that supposedly happened in the finals. I didn't watch them for myself yet, but regardless, I'm not surprised Janemba was able to take this event with only 1 in top cut, because like I said before, the deck's hard to prep for. You know, you got your Fu Shattered, you got your Sneak Attack Vegeta. They proved to be great cards in the side or main board at Vegas. Like David Fuji, for example, in his first place profile, he sideboarded 4 Sneak Attack Vegeta just for the Janemba matchup. And maybe people in Atlanta weren't on those cards. Maybe they weren't sideboarding them. Maybe they didn't realize how powerful they were against the matchup. You know, there's a lot of things you could factor in there as to why this deck was able to squeak through top cut. So you know, of course, probably a great pilot as well. So there's definitely that. Maybe people, yeah, just weren't on those cards. So what I do know is that the deck's going to be even more crazy powerful with the new Destruction rare. Not saying it's gonna be broken or tier 0 or anything like that. I think it's gonna get a very big power boost from that new destruction rare though. Probably only 2 or 3 of, because like I really don't see you wanting to hard cast this. Like hard casting a demon sword just to remove something feels really bad. So hard casting this, unless it's gonna really win you the game, probably also feels bad. Although you do get that energy manipulation, so you don't necessarily tap out at the end of your turn. But green and hand control are getting a lot of new tools too. So Jumbo might be in for a rough time coming into the next set. Now we have 1 Galactic Frieza Storm. It feels like every single PPG event, this deck is just able to like squeak in there, make top cut, which is really cool. I mean, Marcel Russell I know is like really famous for doing that, but yeah, cool to see. Just another aggro deck, you know, Storm taking advantage of those Videls with the Galactic Frieza leader. Really, really cool. So we'll get into the comparison. So it kind of looks like the stereotype flipped on its head, and the stereotype, what I mean is, in most card games, the stereotype typically is that West Coast plays aggressive decks, they play aggro strategies, and that East Coast likes to play control. In this type of, you know, in these 2 events compared side by side, it seems like that flipped. You know, we see like Broly in top cut, 2 of which being Storm, 2 of which being a Storm height hybrid. You see Baby Vegeta in top cut. You see this blue-black Hirudegarn deck that wants to put out big monsters and attack. It seems like this is where the aggro decks came to play. And on the West Coast, we actually had Pan control, Shenron more controlly mid-range, Broly more height. I was the only Storm player to make top cut. And the Hirudegarn red blue, you know, it just felt like there was control all over the West Coast. So it's kind of interesting how that dynamic flipped. You know, there's a lot of things to factor in there. You got like your different play styles, which I guess, you know, that did kind of flip flop at these events. You've got, you know, matchups the deck run into. So Shenron Gogeta, like I was talking to a friend earlier, and I told him like Shenron Gogeta is one of those decks that if you play against the right matchup, or if you play against someone who does not have a plan against you, it almost guarantees you an auto win. But if you go against someone who has a plan, who has a proper sideboard, and who's just ready for the matchup, it's going to be very different. It's going to be very, very different. So it kind of depends what matchups you run into. Rumors going around that, you know, different rumors go around. People talk a lot about what decks can be popular, what should I sideboard against. You know, there's a lot of controversy going around right now, or at least last week, about Anthony Hernandez's video talking about everyone sideboarded Cronoa for Broly. Like, that was a great pick by everyone who did that, and that was not unprecedented by any means. Like, people were completely justified for side decking Killzone, side decking Cronoa. I'll touch on that just a little bit. I don't want to get too into it, but I mean, Janemba, like I said before, does not have silver bullet cards. Cronoa stops you guys strategies that will actually really punish you if they're allowed to go off. And Killzone, especially in red decks, you cannot afford to get bulleted in a red deck. Your battle cards are too powerful, too impactful to the game state. So those are totally justified sideboards, and the results of Vegas and Atlanta show that those are the right calls 100%. But what's really cool about these events is that it showed there's so much room for different decks to play. Even with Mill in the format, even with the turn 4 OTK decks in the format, a lot of different decks to compete, and you just need to have a game plan. Like I said, you have to have a game plan going into these matchups. You have to have a good sideboard. You have to be ready. You have to know what you're trying to do in these matchups. And I've been writing a lot of Patreon articles exactly about these things. So definitely check that out if you're looking for that. I'm not saying the game is, you know, in a perfect state right now. I wish the turn 4 OTK decks didn't exist. I wish that, you know, Mill wasn't as annoying to deal with. I kind of wish Chain Zeno would go away, although I'm not, you know, not saying that the game is broken because these cards exist. I'm actually really happy with the format right now. I would agree with my team leader Marcus Cantarsi that this format is probably the best format we've seen since set 2. There's so much variety. Any strategy you play or play against has an answer, which I think is really great. You know, the answer might be a whole different deck strategy, like the turn 4 OTK decks with you know, being answered by Chain Zeno. Chain Zeno gives them a really hard time, or you might have like Janemba Mill that really just rolls over to like a Fu Shrouded, or like several swings with a Sneak Attack Vegeta. So whatever you guys don't like in the format, any decks you don't like to play against, there's something that answers it. So you can find that, you can tweak your deck to do that. It's really cool. And like I said, there are definitely really bad matchups. That's kind of what kicked me out of top 16. I just couldn't see a way to win that Pan matchup. But I mean, that's card games, right? You're gonna have bad matchups. And I think in the future, with more like these good sideboard cards / silver bullets, I think that these matchups will start to turn around and become more even, a little more skill based, and a little more back and forth. So I'm really happy about that. The game's great right now. I think the way Bandai is handling things means that it's only going to improve from here, guys. So unless they make a misstep, and in which case I'm sure they will correct it. And guys, with that being said, I mean, that was my opinion on the two you know, events that took place. Format is very interesting. We had, you know, 2 different sides of the country going at it, and we saw very different results. And I was really happy with the weekend. Weekend was great. Happy with the deck I played. Happy with the format. There's definitely ways to exploit, you know, people who want to play these OTK decks, these combo decks. So you can do that if you guys are prepared, and hopefully this channel will get you guys prepared for that. So guys, it's gonna bring this video to an end. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about these events, my coverage, anything like that, down in the comments below. Look out for a giveaway tomorrow. My name's Joey. This is CrossFit TCG, and I'll see you guys next time.